Toyota built 1,600 of these Corolla FX Editions for 2026. They gave it white wheels, proper seats, and the body language of a hot hatch. The cynical internet is already calling this a dress-up package, but I want to know if Toyota has actually built a better driver's car than they intended to. $169 horsepower in a car that weighs 3,150 pounds shouldn't feel this urgent because the spec sheet reads like a commuter appliance. The good thing is the 2-liter wants to rev, throttle response is crisp off idle, and that launch gear that's part of this CVT gets this moving in a way that no other CVT does. In the real world, this drivetrain is much quicker than the spec sheet would suggest. The 2-liter makes maximum power above 5,000 RPM, which means in day-to-day driving, you're spending your time in that part of the rev range where the engine is making a whole lot of noise and not quite maximum power. Now, this is where the FX Edition stops being as coherent as I'd like. The badge says one thing, the seats say the same thing, and they agree, as do the white wheels and the wing. Then the CVT joins the conversation. To be fair, it does something unexpected. In manual modes, when you actually upshift with the paddles, those upshifts hit a little harder than you expect. Then if you're in manual mode, don't call for the upshift. That forced upshift is as smooth as butter. Downshifts also hit hard. It is remarkable. They're not perfectly rev matched. This is a CVT after all, but these paddle shifters do respond to your inputs. Yes, it's the same transmission, and in those two different driving conditions, the CVT displays two very distinct attitudes. And even here in drive mode, it will actually simulate upshifts, which is a good reminder for drivers like you and me that we are accelerating, and it's a good audible cue. Toyota calls this dynamic shift continuously variable transmission, which sounds like 3 departments lost an argument and all got to keep their name. And at the end of the day, it's a CVT, but it behaves like a CVT that's had some media training. I found there to be no torque steer here, and I think it's a case of Toyota not engineering it out of the front suspension geometry. It's more of a case of there not being enough power or torque to cause it in the first place. I don't want to dwell on the CVT. 1, it works well here. 2, driving enthusiasts pretty much universally hate these things. And for me, the biggest reason I will complain about it is because the rest of this car is so good that it screams for a manual gearbox. This is rated at 33 miles per gallon combined, and the upside of Toyota's restraint with this drivetrain is that this Corolla Hatchback FX Edition is pretty efficient. Subscribers get notified when new episodes drop on this channel. Non-subscribers hope the algorithm will show it to them eventually, and if you want to control when you see episodes on this channel, well, that's what the subscribe button does. I'm legally required to tell you that this segment is sponsored by Go Clean. I'm ethically required to tell you that I use their waterless car wash. Here's the reality of filming cars. They don't have to be perfectly clean, but they have to be clean enough to survive a close-up. I call that video clean. For that job, this waterless car wash is ideal. A few sprays, quick wipe, and the car goes from someone drove it here to camera ready in minutes. I'm not going to oversell it. I use it, I like it, and it's in my kit now. That's video clean. Use code MAX15 for 15% off. Steering strong on center and then properly weighted off center, and that seems like a small detail, but at this price point, a lot of cars have steering that feel like you're driving through soup. It tracks straight on the highway and then it loads up progressively in the corners, and there's just enough feedback to let you know what's going on at those 2 front contact patches. Brakes are a strong. Initial bite is good. Feel modulation all top-notch, and ABS intervention waits a little bit later than you'd expect for a Corolla hatchback. Now, to be fair, we are on some cold, dusty surfaces, and this car is fitted with winter tires. So grip levels aren't quite the same as they would be with the standard original equipment tire. But as far as this brake pedal goes, it was clearly calibrated to give you all the confidence in the world, but also be satisfying for drivers like you and me. And the thing is, with these 18s and these wheels, this thing is stanced like a proper hot hatch, and it looks right. Then you hit a rough patch of road and that short sidewall says, no, I'm not giving you any compliance. There's something called active cornering assist that's part of this dynamic package, and what it does is it slightly grabs the inside brake to help you rotate through corners. It's so subtle, I don't even feel it, and if it is working, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. This does have the regular Corolla hatchback suspension settings, and it is definitely tuned for comfort. That multi-link rear suspension definitely earns its keep here because the rear of this car is compliant and it's planted in the corners. Push the dampers hard enough and you'll find a little bit of secondary movement on either end. Just a little bit too much compliance, a little bit of float that tells you that Toyota calibrated the rebound for comfort rather than outright control. Fair enough at this price point, but the chassis here is so good that this FX Edition deserves better dampers. Yet there is a little bit of body roll, just enough to let you know about weight transfer and what's going on, but not enough that it's going to cause you concern, just the right amount of information. One last word about rebound damping, and I discovered this when I was enjoying this in the corners, and yes, it's a little nerdy, but think about it for a second. When you get into the corner, you approach the corner, you get on the brakes, you turn in, and as you release the brakes, well, initially, when I was driving this, as I'm releasing the brakes, the front end was eager to pop up, and that was the moment that I learned this doesn't have exactly sport-tuned damping. On the other hand, that reminded me that I was not perfectly smooth when releasing the brakes, and that is critical to getting around corners smoothly and safely, of course, so lesson learned. If you want to support the channel beyond just watching, well, the merch store is open, and your support there means more time for us to produce episodes like this, less time worrying about manufacturer blacklists. No pressure, just an option. When I first got in the driver's seat of this FX Edition, I was surprised at the seats. I didn't realize that these sport seats are part of the package, and they're almost directly pulled from the GR Corolla's parts bin. They're firm, they've got aggressive bolstering, they've got suede inserts, and then, of course, as part of this package, they've got that orange contrasting stitching. And they do the job. They hold you in place in the corners, but they're going to punish anyone who was expecting something softer from a regular Corolla. Heated seats and the heated steering wheel are standard here, but these bolsters are much less interested in your comfort. Seating position is nice and low. Visibility is excellent. The large outboard mirrors and the clear view of the rear view mirror set you up perfectly here. The steering wheel is the right shape, the right size, feels great in your hands, encourages you to have your hands at 9 and 3, and these shift paddles on the back of the steering wheel are mounted to the back of the steering wheel, not to the steering column, which is proper driver ergonomics. And Toyota went with this orange stitching on the seats, on the door cards, and then when it came to the dash, they kind of forgot and just went with black. It should be orange, it isn't, and in a special edition like this, it definitely should be. The instrument cluster is digital and you can customize it to a certain degree, but it's visible in all kinds of lighting. Even in this harsh light, I can see everything I need to see in this instrument cluster. This 8-inch infotainment screen, just fine. It has wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, but let's be honest, nobody is buying this Corolla hatchback for the in-car infotainment experience. Interior material quality runs much higher than anything at this price point. Hard plastics exist where hard plastics should exist, but everything else in this cabin, especially the FX Edition touches, definitely have earned their place here and look great and feel great. And here in the driver's seat, all of this comes off as if this car costs much more than it actually does. Plus, Unlike the GR Corolla, there's actually an armrest with some storage here, which tells you all about Toyota's priorities for the regular Corolla hatchback and the GR Corolla. The rear seats are spacious and comfortable enough for your family and friends who don't resent you. If they're much taller than about 5'10", they probably will. The split folding rear seats are all about cargo carrying capacity, and cargo carrying versatility is the entire point of a hatchback body style. The like button tells YouTube to share this episode with more people like you interested in an episode like this, and if this video gave you more information than a brochure or a press release, well, that's the entire ask. That's what this Corolla told me after a week behind the wheel. Here's what Corollas are telling owners who've been living with them for months, if not years. The good hardware is real. The CVT has one habit you'll notice. Surprisingly, the cabin develops a few rattles and the paint deserves protection early. The most important technical fact that nobody talks about is that every Corolla hatchback leaves the factory with a multi-link rear suspension. Car enthusiasts assume the better hardware is found in the Mazda 3. The car with the independent multi-link rear suspension is the Corolla. That's not how most people sort these two in their heads. Now the CVT, and it's not what you think. It uses a physical, mechanical first gear for launch. Then around 15 to 20 miles an hour, it hands off to the belt drive. Owners describe a subtle hesitation during that transition. Toyota calls it dynamic shift. Forums call it a fish bite. It's the engineering cost of making a CVT feel less like a CVT. Moderate throttle smooths it out. Light throttle makes it more noticeable, which has been my experience because I generally don't use light throttle. And once your right foot adapts, it mostly disappears. Now this does surprise me because it's contrary to my experience with every Toyota I've driven, and what most Corolla owners complain about are rattles. Seatbelt height adjusters, glove box latch, behind the infotainment screen in cold weather. Dealers tend to dismiss it, and owners tend to fix it with felt tape in an afternoon. One thing about the FX specifically, if you care about this paint, protect it immediately. Owner paint gauge readings show clear coat is measurably thinner than the industry average, 3 mils versus the typical 4 to 6. Owners report dozens of chips in the first year. On a limited edition car, that's a conversation worth having before you leave the dealer. If you own one of these or have some quality seat time in one of these, let me know in the comments what I got right and what I got wrong, because real-world ownership experiences are much more revealing than anything I can learn on a week-long press loan, and I always read those comments. The FX Edition works because the underlying Corolla hatchback is better than this special edition brief. The chassis is very well sorted, the interface is pretty much perfect, and the visual package suits this car. And yes, the obvious compromise is the drivetrain, which never fully delivers on the promise the rest of this car makes. This is for the buyer who wants the hot hatch aesthetic without the insurance premium, the fuel bill, or the full ride quality penalty of a committed performance car. And if you're the kind of buyer that will enjoy this package with the CVT, then this is the Corolla hatch to buy. Just don't pretend it's a GR. I remember the FX16, and this FX Edition is making some very strong visual promises. What saves it is an eager engine, the platform, the steering, the braking, and the handling. And for now, this is the Corolla hatchback version to buy, right up until they build one with a manual gearbox. That's the Corolla Hatchback FX Edition. Subscribe if you want to see more of these. Don't if you don't. Comments are open if you disagree. And if you want to help fund more of these, well, the merch store is open. See you on the next one.